Marcus Allen was not the kind of man who looked for trouble. He was 34 years old, a single father of 2 kids, a 9-year-old boy named Damon and a 7-year-old girl named Aaliyah. Every Saturday was his day with them. No work, no phone calls, no distractions. Just the 3 of them doing whatever made his kids smile. That particular Saturday in October, they decided to go to Northgate Mall, a large shopping center about 20 minutes from their apartment in Atlanta. The leaves outside were turning orange and red, and the weather was cool but not cold. It was one of those rare days that felt peaceful before anything happened to break it. Marcus pulled into the parking lot just after 11 in the morning. Damon was already talking about the sneaker store, and Aaliyah wanted to see the toy section in the department store on the far end of the mall. Marcus had a small list of things he needed too: a new belt, some socks, maybe a birthday card for his mother. Nothing big, nothing special, just a normal day. They walked through the main entrance, and the mall was already filling up with weekend shoppers. Families, teenagers, older couples walking slowly and looking at window displays. The food court smelled like cinnamon rolls and fried food. Damon grabbed Marcus's hand on one side, and Aaliyah held the other. Marcus felt good. He felt like a father who was doing his best, and on days like this, his best felt like enough. They stopped at the sneaker store first. Damon pressed his face against the glass and pointed at a pair of red and white shoes on display. Marcus smiled and told him maybe for Christmas. Damon accepted this with a small nod, the way kids do when they know the answer is no, but the door is still slightly open. They walked further into the mall, passing a jewelry store, a phone accessories kiosk, and a small candy shop where Aaliyah begged for a sample of chocolate fudge. Marcus let her have one piece. Just one. It was near the center of the mall, close to the fountain with the fake coins at the bottom, where Marcus first noticed her. An older woman, maybe 70 or 72 years old, was sitting on one of the wooden benches near the fountain. She had white hair pulled back neatly, a light blue coat, and a large brown handbag resting on her lap. She looked tired but calm, the way older people look when they are used to waiting and have made peace with it. Her name, Marcus would later learn, was Dorothy Simmons. He did not think much of her at first. He was focused on his kids. Aaliyah was tossing a penny into the fountain and making a wish, and Damon was pretending the water was a moat around a castle. Marcus stood close, watching them, smiling at nothing in particular. Then he heard a voice, loud, sharp, and carrying that kind of authority that some people use not because the situation requires it, but because they enjoy the feeling of using it. "Ma'am, you cannot sit there. That bench is for paying customers only." Marcus turned. A mall security guard, a young man who looked no older than 25, was standing in front of Dorothy with his arms crossed. He was tall, wearing a dark uniform with a small badge on his chest. His voice was not angry exactly, but it was firm in a way that felt unnecessary. Dorothy looked up at him slowly. She did not seem afraid. She seemed confused. "I'm sorry," she said. Her voice was soft, a little rough the way old voices get. "That bench. It's for customers. Are you shopping today, or are you just sitting?" Dorothy blinked. "I'm resting my legs, young man. I've been walking for a while. I understand that, but these benches are for customers. If you're not shopping, I'm going to have to ask you to move." Marcus watched this exchange with a rising feeling in his chest. Something uncomfortable. Something that made the peaceful morning feel suddenly different. He looked around. There were other people sitting on the same benches nearby. A young couple, a man eating a pretzel, 2 teenage girls on their phones. None of them were being asked to move. None of them had a guard standing over them with crossed arms. He told Damon and Aaliyah to stay close to the fountain and not move. Then he walked over. "Excuse me," Marcus said. His voice was calm. He was deliberate about keeping it calm. "Is there a problem here?" The guard turned and looked at Marcus. Something shifted in the guard's expression, not fear exactly, but a kind of recalibration. He looked Marcus up and down. Marcus was a big man, 6 feet even, broad shoulders, wearing a dark green jacket. He did not look threatening. He simply looked like a man who had decided to ask a question. "Sir, this doesn't involve you," the guard said. "I'm making it involve me," Marcus replied, still calm. "This woman is sitting on a bench in a public mall. She's not causing any trouble. She's resting. Why are you asking her to move?" The guard straightened up. "Mall policy. These benches are for shoppers." Marcus looked at the bench next to Dorothy. The couple sitting there were not carrying bags. The man eating the pretzel was simply eating. "Are you asking all of them to move?" Marcus asked. Or just her? The guard did not answer that question. He looked at Dorothy instead, then back at Marcus. Sir, I'm asking you to step back. I'm not going to step back, Marcus said. I'm going to stand right here until you explain why this woman is being singled out. A small crowd had begun to form. Not a large group, maybe 8 or 10 people who had slowed down to watch. Some were on their phones. Marcus noticed one woman holding her phone up in the direction of the guard and Dorothy. He did not ask her to stop. He understood why she was doing it. Dorothy looked up at Marcus. You don't have to do this, young man, she said quietly. Yes, ma'am, I do, he said. He said it gently, not to perform anything for the crowd, just because he believed it. The guard, now clearly uncomfortable, changed his approach. His tone dropped a little. He uncrossed his arms. Look, I'm just doing my job. Your job is to keep people safe, Marcus said. Not to tell a 70-year-old woman she can't rest her legs. What exactly is she doing wrong? No answer. Is there a manager I can speak to? Marcus asked. The guard hesitated. Then he touched the radio on his shoulder and turned slightly away, speaking quietly into it. Marcus waited. He checked on Damon and Aaliyah, who were watching from the fountain with wide eyes. Damon looked serious. Aaliyah looked worried. Marcus gave them a small nod, the kind that said everything is okay, just wait. A minute passed. Then 2. The guard stood nearby, not speaking. The crowd had grown slightly. The woman with the phone was still recording. Dorothy sat quietly on the bench, her hands folded over her handbag, watching Marcus with something in her eyes that was not quite gratitude and not quite surprise. It was something older and deeper than both those things. It was recognition. Like she had lived long enough to know that moments like this one were rare, and she was watching it carefully so she would not forget it. Marcus stood his ground. He did not raise his voice again. He did not move from the spot. He simply waited. The mall sounds continued around them. Music from a nearby store, the laughter of children, the echo of footsteps on tile floors. But in that small circle near the fountain, something had stopped. Something was waiting to be decided. The manager, Marcus had been told, was on the way. He had no idea yet what that would mean. He had no idea that the next hour would test him in ways that a simple Saturday morning at the mall had no right to do. He only knew that Dorothy Simmons was still sitting on her bench, and as long as he was standing there, nobody was going to make her move. The manager who arrived was a woman named Carol Briggs. She was in her mid-40s, wearing a navy blue blazer with the mall's logo on the breast pocket, and she walked fast, the way people walk when they have been interrupted from something and are mildly annoyed about it. She came from the direction of the east corridor, heels clicking against the tile, and she stopped when she reached the small gathering near the fountain. She looked at the guard first, then at Marcus, and then briefly at Dorothy, who was still sitting quietly on the bench with her hands folded. Carol smiled the kind of smile that managers learn in training. Controlled. Neutral. Neither warm nor cold. Hello, everyone, she said. What seems to be the issue? Marcus spoke first. Your guard asked this woman to leave her seat. She's elderly, she was resting, and she was not bothering anyone. I asked why she was being singled out, and he couldn't give me an answer. Carol glanced at the guard, whose name tag read T. Holt. Holt gave a small shrug, which was not the confident move of someone who felt he had done the right thing. Carol turned back to Marcus. Sir, I understand your concern, she said. Our staff is trained to make sure the common areas are comfortable for all guests. Sometimes there are capacity issues with seating. There's no capacity issue, Marcus said, and he gestured at the benches around them. Look at this area. There are open seats everywhere. And those people, he pointed carefully at the couple and the man with the pretzel, have been sitting here the whole time without anyone approaching them. So I'd like to understand what made this woman different. Carol's smile held, but something behind her eyes adjusted. She was smart enough to know what Marcus was implying, and she was careful enough not to say it out loud. I can assure you our policies apply equally to all guests, she said. Then why didn't they apply equally today? Marcus asked. Silence. Not a long silence, but the kind that says more than words. Carol looked at Dorothy. Ma'am, are you all right? Is there anything I can get you? Dorothy looked up at her slowly. I'm fine, she said. I just needed to sit down. My hip has been giving me trouble lately. I wasn't planning to cause any fuss. You didn't cause any fuss, Marcus said to her, gently but firmly. You sat on a bench. That's it. Carol cleared her throat. Of course. And you're welcome to continue sitting there, ma'am. There's absolutely no issue. She said it cleanly, like she was drawing a line under the whole thing, like this resolution was her idea and had always been the plan. She looked at Marcus. I hope that addresses your concerns, sir. Not entirely, Marcus said. Carol blinked. I'm sorry. I want to know what happens to the guard. Because what he did, singling out an older woman and not asking anyone else to move, that's not a policy issue. That's a decision he made. And someone should look at why he made it. Carol's expression became more careful, more professional in the way that professional sometimes means closed. We take all concerns seriously, she said. If you'd like to fill out a formal complaint, I can get you the paperwork. I'd like that, Marcus said. Yes. Something flickered across her face. She had not expected him to say yes. She had offered the paperwork the way people sometimes offer things they expect will be declined, the same way a restaurant offers a complaint form assuming most people will just shake their heads and leave. Marcus did not shake his head. He stood there and waited. Carol excused herself for a moment and spoke quietly to Holt. Marcus could not hear what she said. Holt nodded twice and walked away toward the east corridor. Carol came back with the same controlled expression and told Marcus she would return shortly with the form. Then she walked away too. Marcus turned to Dorothy. He crouched down a little so he was closer to her eye level, the way he did with his kids when he wanted to talk to them seriously. How are you feeling? He asked. Old, Dorothy said, and then she laughed. It was a real laugh, small but genuine, and it broke something in the tension of the moment. Marcus smiled too. Do you have someone here with you? He asked. My daughter was supposed to meet me here, Dorothy said. She's running late. She always runs late. There was no anger in how she said it. Just the acceptance of a mother who has known her child long enough to stop being surprised. We'll wait with you, Marcus said. Dorothy looked at him for a moment. You have your children with you, she said, nodding toward the fountain where Damon and Aaliyah were still standing. Damon had his arms crossed, trying to look serious. Aaliyah was still holding the penny she had not tossed yet. They can wait too, Marcus said. He waved them over. Damon and Aaliyah came and stood beside their father. Aaliyah looked at Dorothy with the open curiosity of a 7-year-old who has not yet learned to pretend she is not looking. Are you okay? Aaliyah asked her. Dorothy smiled at her, a real smile, wider than the one she had given Marcus. Yes, sweetheart, I am. Thank you for asking. My dad said you needed help, Aaliyah said. Your dad was right, Dorothy replied. Damon said nothing but positioned himself slightly in front of Aaliyah, the way older siblings sometimes do when they sense that something important is happening around them and they want to be useful without knowing exactly how. Carol returned about 10 minutes later. She had a printed form, single page, with boxes for name, contact information, and description of the complaint. She handed it to Marcus along with a pen. He filled it out carefully, writing in block letters, not rushing. He described what he had seen. He named the bench location, the time, the guard's badge name, and the exact words that had been used. He handed it back to Carol. She looked it over. We'll review this within 5 to 7 business days, she said. And what happens then? Marcus asked. Someone will be in touch, she said. He looked at her steadily. Has this happened before? With this guard or any other? Carol paused. It was a small pause, but Marcus caught it. I'm not able to speak to other incidents, she said. That's what I thought, Marcus said quietly, not aggressively, just as an observation. By this time, the small crowd that had formed earlier had not entirely disappeared. A few people had walked on, but several remained. The woman who had been recording earlier had put her phone down, but was still standing nearby, watching. An older black man in a gray sweater caught Marcus's eye and gave him a small nod, the kind of nod that men of a certain generation give when they have seen something they recognize and want to acknowledge without making a scene. Marcus nodded back. He stayed until Dorothy's daughter arrived. Her name was Patricia, a woman around 50 with tired eyes and a warm voice who apologized to her mother 4 times in the first minute for being late. Dorothy waved off every apology. Patricia saw Marcus and shook his hand. She had clearly been given a quick version of what happened because her grip was firm and her eyes said more than thank you. I'm glad someone was there, Patricia said. I was just standing in the right place, Marcus said. He did not feel like a hero. He did not feel like someone who had done something exceptional. He felt the way he always felt when he did what he thought was simply correct. A little tired, a little relieved, and slightly unsettled, because doing the right thing in front of a crowd means that for a few minutes, you are standing in a place where it is very easy to get something wrong. and the weight of that does not go away just because it turned out fine. He collected his children, took Aaliyah's hand, and they began walking again. Damon asked if they were still going to get the birthday card for Grandma. Marcus said yes. Aaliyah asked if the old lady was going to be okay. Marcus said she was going to be just fine. Aaliyah thought about that for a moment, then tossed her penny into the fountain. She did not say what she wished for. Marcus did not ask. Some wishes, he knew, are better kept quietly inside the person who made them. The mall continued around them. Music, footsteps, the smell of food and floor cleaner. People moving in every direction, each with their own small Saturday story. Marcus kept walking. He did not know yet that by the time he got home that evening, everything would be different. He did not know that the woman with the phone had not stopped recording when he thought she had. He did not know that the video was already moving through the internet the way things do when they carry a truth that people recognize without being told to. He only knew that his kids were beside him, that an old woman was safe, and that somewhere on a piece of paper in a mall office, his name was written down next to something that mattered. Marcus got home at around 4 in the afternoon. He made grilled cheese sandwiches for the kids, helped Aaliyah with a drawing she had been working on all week, and watched half a cartoon with Damon before putting them both to bed at 8. By 8:30, the apartment was quiet. He poured himself a glass of water, sat on the couch, and reached for his phone for the first time since the morning. The notifications were already there. Not dozens, hundreds. Then, as he sat there reading, more coming in. Comments, messages, shares, tags. Someone had posted a video. He found it quickly because his name was already attached to it in several posts. The video was shot from a medium distance, clearly by the woman near the fountain he had noticed earlier. It was 2 minutes and 40 seconds long. It showed the guard standing over Dorothy, the exchange of words, and then Marcus walking over. It captured most of what was said, though some of it was muffled by mall noise. It captured Marcus standing his ground, his voice calm and level, asking the questions that needed to be asked. It captured Carol Briggs arriving. And at the end, briefly, it captured Aaliyah walking up and asking Dorothy if she was okay, and Dorothy smiling at her. The caption on the post read, "This man stood up for an elderly woman being harassed by a mall guard in Atlanta while his kids watched. This is what it looks like to do the right thing." It had been shared over 40,000 times. Marcus sat with his phone in his hand for a long time. He did not know what to feel. He was not someone who had grown up wanting attention. He was not someone who thought of himself as brave. He was a man who had made a decision in a moment, the same kind of decision that many people face and many people walk past. The decision had not felt large when he made it. It had felt necessary. There is a difference between those two things, and Marcus understood that difference in his bones. He turned off his phone and went to bed. By Monday morning, the video had been viewed over 2 million times. His phone, when he turned it back on, was impossible to manage. He had messages from people he had not spoken to in years. He had messages from strangers across the country. He had 2 emails from journalists who had found his name through the complaint form, which, Marcus later realized, was public record, asking for comment. He read them carefully, then set the phone down and made coffee. He thought about his kids. He thought about what Damon had seen. He thought about how Aaliyah had walked up to Dorothy on her own, without being told to, and asked if she was okay. He thought about what that moment had been teaching his children, and whether he had even been aware he was teaching them anything at all. He called his mother first. She had already seen the video. She had been sent it by 3 different people. She cried on the phone, not loudly, but in the way that mothers cry when something about their child makes them feel both proud and relieved at the same time. Relieved that the person they raised turned out to be real, to be solid, to hold their shape under pressure. "I raised you right," she said. "You did," he told her. He did not respond to the journalist that day. He was not ready. He needed to think about what he wanted to say and what he did not. Being recorded without knowing it, and then watched by millions of people, is a strange thing. The moment had been real. The moment had been his. But it had also, now, become something larger than him. A mirror that people were holding up and looking into, and seeing something they recognized about the world they lived in. The mall, for its part, had gone silent. Marcus had received no call from Carol Briggs. No email. No response to the complaint he had filled out. The 5 to 7 business days she mentioned had not passed yet, but in the context of 2 million views and national media coverage, the silence from Northgate Mall felt like a decision. Like someone in a corporate office had said the words "wait and see," and everyone below them was doing exactly that. On Tuesday, a local news station ran a segment. They used footage from the video and described the incident. They contacted the mall for a statement. The mall responded with 4 sentences that said nothing. They were committed to providing a welcoming environment for all guests. They took all concerns seriously. They were reviewing the matter internally, and they thanked guests for their patience. It was the kind of statement that is written to close a door without making the sound of closing it. On Wednesday, Dorothy Simmons's daughter Patricia called a local civil rights organization. Not to file a lawsuit, she said, but to make sure the right questions were being asked of the right people. The organization released a short public statement supporting Dorothy and calling on the mall to take clear and transparent action. Still, the mall said nothing new. Marcus finally spoke to a journalist on Thursday, a reporter from a midsize outlet who had reached out through a mutual contact and who Marcus felt, after a phone call, was someone he could trust to be fair. He spoke for about 20 minutes. He said what he had thought all along, that he had not done anything extraordinary, that what he had done was the minimum, that the fact that a video of a man asking a few calm questions could move 2 million people said more about the world than it said about him, that he worried about what it meant that this felt surprising to so many people, that he hoped his kids, when they were older, would live in a world where this was not news, where it was just Tuesday. The article ran the next day. It was read widely. It was shared. It added his name more permanently to the story. The mall finally issued a second statement on Friday afternoon, 1 week after the incident. In it, they stated that the security guard in question had been retrained and reminded of proper policy. They did not use the word disciplined. They did not use the word apologize. They said they had reached out to the guest involved, referring to Dorothy, to express their regret over the situation. They used the word situation the way people use it when they do not want to name the thing that actually happened. Patricia confirmed that the mall had called Dorothy. She said the call was short and that the person on the other end had read from something. Dorothy, Patricia said, had thanked the person politely and ended the call. Dorothy was not angry. Dorothy was, in her own words, too old to stay angry at things that had always been there. But she had told Patricia that she was glad the young man had stood up. She had told Patricia that she had thought about it every day since it happened. Not about the guard. Not about the manager or the mall or the statement. About Marcus. About his daughter walking up and asking if she was okay. About the penny going into the fountain. 3 weeks after the incident, Marcus received a letter in the mail. It was handwritten, on plain white paper, in the careful, slow handwriting of someone who had once been taught to write properly and had never forgotten how. It was from Dorothy Simmons. It was 2 pages long. Marcus read it twice, sitting alone at his kitchen table after the kids were in school. Dorothy wrote about her life. She wrote about what it felt like to be old in public, to be invisible and visible at the same time. Invisible when something needs to be offered, visible when someone decides you are out of place. She wrote about her husband, who had passed 6 years ago, and how he had been the kind of man who stood up in small moments, who believed that character was not what you did when it was easy, but what you reached for when it cost you something. She wrote that meeting Marcus had reminded her of her husband, not because they looked the same or sounded the same, but because they had the same stillness, the same quiet decision inside the eyes. She wrote at the end, "You have good children. I could see it in how they watched you. Children learn from what they see, not from what they are told. Your son stood up straight the whole time. Your daughter asked me if I was okay. That is your doing. That is the thing you are leaving in the world. Don't forget it." Marcus folded the letter carefully and put it in the drawer where he kept things he wanted to keep. His mother's old birthday cards. A drawing Damon made in 1st grade. A photograph from the day Aaliyah was born. He thought about what Dorothy had written for a long time. He was not a perfect man. He had hard days. He had days where he felt the weight of raising 2 children alone, of being a black man in a country that had always made that harder than it should be, of working to give his kids a life that felt solid even when the ground beneath it was not always steady. But he had stood by a fountain on a Saturday in October. He had asked a few questions in a calm voice. He had stayed until an old woman was safe, and his daughter had walked up on her own and asked if someone was okay. He thought that maybe that was enough. He thought that maybe that was everything. Outside his kitchen window, the trees had lost most of their leaves now. The orange and red of October was gone. November had settled over Atlanta the way it always did. Gray and quiet, and somehow still beautiful if you were willing to look at it directly. Marcus poured himself a second cup of coffee, sat back down at the table, and was still for a moment. Just still. The apartment was quiet. The world outside was going about its business. He picked up his phone, texted his mother a short message, just 3 words, thinking of you, and then set it down again. He had to pick up the kids at 3. He had to figure out what was for dinner. He had a belt he still had not bought, and a birthday card he still needed to find. Life had continued the way it always does, quietly, around the thing that mattered.